name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Nalini. This is chapter 4, part 1, the first sacrifice. Since our escalating. When my assassin left, I began to ponder on my greatest blunder, and I have been too focused on my success to notice a change in my father's behavior. He naturally had green thoughts towards Nalini. However, his desire to kill me had only grown since the madness incident, and he had reached a new height last night, and in his fury I was able to see his true intentions. Thoughts and intentions are two different things. While thoughts are loose, intentions are hard to read, and a man's intentions are almost impossible to understand. Yes, I have made a blunder, and it would have been foolish to underestimate him. And as the days passed, I was able to read his mind less and less, and it seemed to me that he was learning how to block my telepathy. And I decided to confront him before he learned how to completely block me out. If worse came to worse, I would have to confront him in the flesh. And a week after the war out incident, I visited my father's study, and that day most of the family had gone out. As usual, he was poring over a few texts on magic, and I kicked the door open and I sat unceremoniously before him. And his new behavior made him smile, and he observed me coolly from behind the desk, and I could feel him juggling an idea in the back of his mind. He tried to disarm me by saying, I know everything. I know everything as well, Father dearest, I said, mimicking Nalini's sweet tone. Stop it with a father nonsense. Neither you nor Nalini are my daughter, he snapped. He checked his temper by focusing his gaze on a magical tome he was reading. Pity that you would think so, considering that Nalini is your true daughter. My statement made my father laugh. He had no doubt in his mind that he spoke the truth. As a matter of fact, he almost seemed relieved. His attitude changed completely after I cleared up this fact, and he almost seemed cordial. When he was done laughing, I added, so my assassin spilled the beans? More or less. I only had to question him once before he told me all of your secrets. I must add that he's not your most loyal ally. He said this in a soft, soothing voice, the kind of tone he assumed when he spoke to my baby brother. I said, I ain't surprised you have not tried to kill me yet. There will be no point, he added. More importantly, what do you want? There is something happening here. Something that you are doing to the world or anything. I don't know. Don't you feel that there's something off about this place? My father carefully measured his words before saying, yes, I had noticed that there's something off about this place. These anomalies occur whenever Bersame goes to war. Things usually go back to normal whenever his bloodlust is finally satiated. Are you happy with just sitting still and doing nothing, I asked? It's hopeless. We have seen what occurs to anyone who opposes King Bersame. My father said this with an air of resignation. I propose a truce, I said, standing before him. I handed him my right hand of peace. My father held the tips of my fragile fingers. After we shook hands, I started walking towards the door. My father rose and opened the door for me, and I went to my class after leaving my father's study, and that day class was cut short, and based on Nalini's memory, something horrible was about to happen. As it often happens, Gremia had allowed me, Gremia had not allowed me to attend, and the rest of the girls had attended regardless of how they felt about the grim proceedings that were about to occur. This time I went with my family to watch the ceremony. The ceremony took place within the palace, and the entrance hall had the feeling of a Gothic cathedral without the idols, and it was large enough to accommodate thrice the Elven population. And the stained glass window had scenes from the forest, and the hard marble floor did not have any couches, pillows, or benches to sit on. White three-story columns paved way to the altar, and at the atrium a huge fireplace glowed. Gremia had the only chair in the room, and he sat in a marble throne filled with elaborate carvings. So, like, you go to church, but only the priest is allowed to sit. All of you else, everyone else, you stand. Time, bro?
10 minutes.
A thin, transparent curtain separated him from the audience, and beside him stood 6 stoic priests, each 3 on each side. Gremia looked surprised to see me among the crowd. He, however, kept his composure, and my family took its place near the front, right behind the royal family that lived in the palace. And Gremia made a motion to his attendants, who parted the curtain, and when this occurred, the crowd fell to their knees. The litany began with a reverie of the forces of nature, and each elf sang a unique praise to nature. An entire mismatched songs of each clan united in one solemn song, praising the goddess Lara. And while they sang, I slowly began to take out my flute, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity to do mischief. And my father, who was behind me, saw me taking out my flute, and he gave me a loving hug, and he whispered into my ear, "Don't you even think about it." His uncharacteristic affection of me made my mother smile, and it made my brother jealous. His hug had another purpose. With one hand, he managed to bind me, and with the other, he was feeling around for my flute. He only patted me down briefly and released me when he noticed that Vermeer was looking in our direction. Pouting a whisper, "Are you done?" I had made the flute disappear when my father gave me the hug, and I realized that I could not make use of the flute whenever he was nearby. And I also thought that there is more than one way to skin a cat, and much to my father's relief, the song ended. And after the song, the men moved to the corners of the room, and this created an open space for the maiden. And together with the other maidens, we performed the ritual dance. Time, bro?
8 minutes.
And I did not even know the dance for the ceremony. And via mimicry, none of the presents noted that I did not know the steps. And while we danced, the male elf sang. And the dance stopped when Vermeer clapped his hands once, and the dancers stopped in mid-motion, and the singing stopped mid-phrase. Vermeer walked towards the center of the room, stretching out his hand, and he sang, "My goddess, let me hide, please be my flame, please hear my prayer in my darkest hour, I call upon you louder, my goddess, my fortress." And when he finished his prayer, the song and the dancing continued, and the rest of the song went on for half an hour, and from time to time Vermeer would clap once, and we would change our style of dancing. And at others we sang a few chorus lines, and I must say that practically every elf had a talent for singing. From the male singers, my father's voice always stunned above the rest, and from the woman, my song stood out from everyone else. It almost felt like we were competing with each other at this point. And in the last stanza of the song, the altar's flames seemed to dance with us, and the fire became wild, and it grew and expanded until it covered the entire building. And the flame felt warm, and to Nalini it felt as if she had returned to her mother's womb, and the fire carried within it a feeling of joy and well-being. And it brought peace to all of our hearts, and within the flame I felt the love of the goddess, and when the flame receded, it left behind an overall feeling of peace and serenity. Time, bro?
7 minutes.
My father seemed in a better mood after the ceremony, and the second half of the ceremony was a bit more casual, and Vermeer walked among us, and he posed to us as if we were part of a big family. And the second part of the ceremony focused on strengthening our sense of community. And the sis attendants brought us cushions to sit on, and we had good dinner inside the palace, and cordiality reigned within this proceeding. And Vermeer and his attendants sat with my family, and my mother felt honored by his presence, and my father was in too much of a good mood to allow Vermeer's presence to spoil his appetite. They spoke civilly to each other. During dinner party, Vermeer said, "Why don't you play your flute for us?" My father gave a sardonic smile. He was bringing to his mind a protection spell that would shield his mind from my influence. And I took out my flute from beneath my sleeve, and feeling that all eyes were upon me, I played the hardest song that came to my mind. And that song was the infamous Flight of the Bumblebee. And the speed and oddness of the song caught everyone off guard, and no one had ever heard a tune like that. And via my influence, I evoked in their mind the image of a fat bumblebee flying inside the room. And some of the children even thought that they saw the bumblebee flying over their foot. Or maybe it was a real bee that was visiting. Who knows? When I finished playing, Vermeer was the one to initiate the clapping. Like, the kids started clapping to force everyone to clap. Clap. Time, bro?
5 minutes.
Like it is tradition in most places, whenever the king does something, the rest must emulate, and many did not like the song, and others didn't know what to make out of it. Interesting enough, my father did like the song. Being a man of the world, my father's ear had gotten used to all sorts of strange music. He gave me a warm smile and thought, and I know that you can read my thoughts, and it would be beneficial for both of us if you didn't play so much strange music. And my father's strange kindness toward me was a new development, and even Ramir found his behavior a bit eerie. And to dissipate the dark cloud hanging over everyone's heart, I played something a little bit more, something that they would agree with. And since it was fall, the old song I played alluded to the falling leaves, and like the previous one, this song brought into everyone's mind the image of falling leaves, and in this case, some of the children started yawning, were chastised, and Grimir didn't press me to continue playing because he noticed that I was getting bored. And after dinner we had another litany that invoked the fire, and this one was performed by Grimir and his attendants alone. And the others simply sat on their cushions and chairs and watched their performance. And by now the sun was setting, and somehow the twilight made the columns shimmer with a strange rosy color, and the procession took on a more solemn tone. The cushions were taken away, we stood aside into columns, and the main portal opened. Walled by 4 guards, time bro?
4 minutes.
Walled by 4 guards, a young maiden was led towards the altar. And unlike the regular elves, this maiden was dressed in black, and based on her size, she might have passed for a 16 years old. When she reached the altar, she lowered her hood, and when I saw her face, I recognized her as one of Nalini's playfellows. She had aged so much in just a couple of months. She had the haggard look of somebody who was about to die. The sacrificial lamb was stripped of all of her worldly belongings, and one by one, all of her childhood things were thrown into the fire. When the things were gone, Grimir beckoned her to enter the flames as well. The thought of seeing that poor girl burned to death felt agonizing, and I glanced pleadingly at Grimir. He did not return my gaze. Like the others, they were focused on the solemnity of the event. The girl took a step forward and another, and the flames licked their tongues in expectation of the coming meal. My father saw me reaching for my flute, and he placed his hand on my shoulder, and he shook his head. In his thoughts, he said sadly, "Some things cannot be helped." The girl entered the flames and... Everyone felt relieved to be out of the palace, and most of the ceremonies were cheerful, except when somebody had to lose their life. Ideally, only criminals were fed to the flames. Overtime crime had been abolished. No one dared to steal or murder anyone, unless the king commanded it. Each elf yielded to the whims of their leader, and in order to supply the fire, new scenes had to be invented, and at other times the victim was chosen due to the purity or lack thereof. In either scenario, the ending was the same. A poor maiden was always sacrificed, and the whole event left a bad taste in my mouth, especially since I wasn't allowed to intervene. The walk back home was as solemn as the sacrifice we had just witnessed, and Father was musing a little on how much information he should give me. He realized that it would be problematic should I interfere in any future sacrifices. A part of him wanted to forbid me from ever participating. Another part of him wanted me to let me do whatever I wanted and see what would occur. In the end, he resolved to just play this by ear. Time, bro?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
When we entered a mansion, we each went our separate ways, and my younger brother left to play with his friends, and my mother left to gossip with the neighbors and the maid. As for my father, he led me towards the study, and while we walked side by side, he hummed a strange song to himself. He did not remember where he had picked up the tune, and for some reason the song he hummed sounded familiar to me. And he opened the door of his study and beckoned me within, and once inside he fueled the fire, and when he finished he removed one of his clothes, and behind it there was a hidden glass of wine and a bottle. He poured himself a glass and sat on his chair, and sensing that he wanted to speak, I lay down on the couch, and while lying down I took out my flute and I began practicing my fingering. And my father watched my exercise with keen interest. He took a sip of wine and he sighed. In a lazy sort of way he asked, "May I see your flute?" I threw the flute at him, and he had enough hand-to-eye coordination to catch it. He looked at the flute up and down, and he said a word of magic, and he frowned, and the spell did not resonate with the flute. This proved to him that the flute had no magical properties. Time, bro?
30 seconds.
Alright, we'll leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless.